We're back with another episode of Wednesdays with Sherry and George, where we talk about the work we're doing in creating music for what's known as synchronized licensing or sync licensing for film, TV, advertisement. And last week, we talked about a new piece we had created called Sunrise Reprise. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of an electronic kind of piece. It had a nice sound, kind of a chill sound to it, but it was mostly electronic instruments. What are we going to do this week?
Well, we decided to do something quite different and go more towards an organic, real instrument sound for a change.
Yeah, and this one was a fun challenge for us. We used a little bit of orchestration in this piece. Mm-hmm. We're learning a lot about how to create truly realistic sounding orchestral instruments such as a violin or a flute.
Well, first of all, it's a lot harder than you think.
Yeah, that's for
It's
sure.
not exactly you take a MIDI keyboard and you play it like a piano and it sounds like a violin.
Yeah.
That's totally not going to happen. There's so many different articulations that you can do when you're playing a stringed instrument like the violin. I think there's about, 40 or something.
At least 40. If you just do a Google search on violin articulations, you will see what they are. We're using a sample library called East West, which is fairly popular and has just tons and tons of sampling sounds for violin, every instrument. But even just violin alone, it has
at least 20 of the articulations.
Right.
And just trying to figure out which notes have to be which articulation for it to sound like a real person was playing that violin actually takes a lot of time. It's a lot like debugging something. You play it, first pass and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound good, that doesn't sound good, that doesn't sound good. And then you have to go in and figure out, well, for each of these notes that didn't sound good, what is wrong with it and how can you fix it? So it's a lot of trial and error. And
you spend more time in editing than playing.
Yeah.
I think the playing time in this piece was really literally a couple of minutes. The rest of the time was spent in editing that particular passage to make it sound like it had the correct articulation for that instrument. Now, we did something else interesting, which we highly recommend if you're interested in getting into creating orchestral sounds. That is, we took a little walk. And by a little, I mean really a little. It's like right down the street from where we are, which is the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Actually, it was a Friday morning conference.
Friday matinee, 11 a.m. concert.
We were sitting on the side of the orchestra so we could see the conductor and we could see the entire orchestra. And at one point, for one piece, they had 78 pieces in the orchestra. The percussion alone must have been, 12
Something
people?
Like that.
But anyways, what is really eye-opening is to sit there and just watch how a piece comes together and what the different instruments are doing and how they're doing it and how that meshes with the rest of the symphony orchestra.
Yeah, it was really cool to see, as you're hearing the music, how the flutes and the bassoons are layered together, and then they're doing this call and response with the string section. Sometimes a motif will be started by one section, like the strings, and then they're picked up by the wind instruments. It's really helpful to see in front of your eyes how everything comes together and how everything makes the piece more cohesive. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do orchestration, I highly recommend going. It also helps you with the placement. Like after we've been there a couple of times, I kind of remember, the violins are typically there, the cello is typically here, and so it really helps you with the mix as well.
Although the LA Philharmonic does not seat people the way most orchestras do, but that's true. I mean, you get to see where they're placed, where the first violins are versus the second violins, the violas, the cellos, the bass, and then of course the brass instruments. And it gives, as Sherry was saying, for mixing, it gives you an idea of just spatially where they should be placed.
Yeah. So that was very educational and very fun.
So we highly recommend that. Hopefully you can find one that's at least within driving distance. We have it pretty easy just walking down the street.
Yeah.
We also just re-released a piece that we had done a year ago, and it's a tribute to parents. So it was really made for Father's Day or Mother's Day, and so we re-released it on Mother's Day just this past Sunday. The piece is called You Must Have Known, and this one's a little different. We were going for a piece of music that would be used for synchronizing probably for advertisements. So you want it to be happy, you want it to be uplifting, you want it to be bright and warm.
The feel we were going for is Jack Johnson, very acoustic, laid back, still poppy, but not your typical pop sound, happy clappy stomps, glockenspiel bells.
They usually have a ukulele, they have some whistling. That's a very typical sound these days.
Which we did in Bright Sunny Day in the first episode of Wednesdays with Sherry and George.
Right, so it's a fairly typical sound, but we tried to do a little bit of a spin on that. We had a real upright bass player that did the little jazz walking bass sound. We had a very, very kind of cute kid on that played drums on this one. I think she was 11 years old when 12 when we recorded it, and I think it was her first paid gig. And now here's a little teaser for next week.
Well, next week we're going to do something completely different, and we'll give you a sneak peek of music we wrote for a heist scene. So
again, this would be a piece that would be synchronized for maybe the setup for a heist in a heist movie. And
think like Ocean's 11.
Yeah, think like Ocean's 11. So give it a listen and come back next week, and we'll elaborate on what it took to put that piece together. So thanks for watching.
If you're watching on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and click the little bell next to it so you know when we put out new videos, because otherwise you'll never see them. And if you would like to get some free music or just get other updates that we don't put in this video, sign up for our mailing list. Our next email will be going out in the next week or so. We typically send out one every month or two. So do that, 23rd-hour23rdhr.com/sign up.
Thanks for watching.